Ubuntu 23.04 is officially out. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the changes to 23.04 and compare those to 22.04. It's important to note, Ubuntu 23.04 is not a long-term support release, meaning support will end for it in January 2024, at which point you want to make sure you have upgraded to Ubuntu 23.10. While I may not typically use Ubuntu, it's always good to see what Canonical's doing and to see what the trends are for them. One thing that I want to do more as this channel moves forward is to test distros on bare metal. Thus, I have dedicated one machine just to testing, and so I've installed Ubuntu 23.04 on that. Some of the key changes for Ubuntu 23.04 is a new installer, Gnome 44, new applications, and the Linux kernel 6.2. I believe they started using Pipewire in Ubuntu 22.10, and this continues in Ubuntu 23.04. As we'll see, Pipewire Pulse is also enabled. Okay, so I am on the install here. So as you'll notice, this is a 4K screen that I'm looking at. So my cursor is very small and the text is tiny. So let's see if we can get that fixed really quick, and then we will run our install. Now I can actually see. So we're going to stick to English. It's probably for the best. We're going to install Ubuntu, and we're English US, that's fine. So I'm just going to use the wired connection that's here. I do like that they give you the option to, I don't want to connect to the internet just now. Unlike a certain other OS that you can install, I am going to download the media codecs. I don't know that we'll actually use that, but just in case. And I'll proceed with that installation. We're going to install everything. We're going to erase the disk. I'm having to redo this because my audio was terrible in the first video. We should be good now. All right, that all looks good. So we're in Chicago for the time zone anyway. Bash. We're going to call this Bravo. We're going to do our super extended secure password, dark. There we go. All right, this will just take a few minutes. So as you saw, this is a bit different. It's not all that different. We'll take a look, kind of, I'll flash up on the screen what the old installer looks like, but it is kind of rewritten and it is just a bit cleaner overall. And this is something that I was looking through before, so it's interesting that they kind of go with Spotify as kind of their highlighted application, and then they go over here to, you know, Telegram and Nextcloud and stuff. But I was looking through some of these. Oh, and I skipped it. So one thing that I'll bring up on the screen that I forgot to mention while we were looking at it is there's actually a connect to Active Directory. I believe that was in 22.04, but they have extended the capabilities of that. One thing that I really like about this is really clean, and also it provides some useful stuff. Like there's useful information in here. Some of it I find a bit weird, like, you know, the highlight of Spotify, but it's a very clean look and feel. I think it's, you know, well designed. So that's something that I think is actually more important than some people really think it is. So I do think that that is something that's good. Though I find this a little funny because they say develop with the best of open source, and then they show Visual Studio Code, which is only partially open source. I mean, I think they're talking about Ubuntu being the open source, but it's just, I just find it kind of funny that they did it that way. But yeah, I think aesthetics are actually a bit underrated at times. I'm not saying every distro needs to be Garuda, but one thing that I will talk about more as we get into the Ubuntu version of Gnome is that they end up making it look very clean. They also end up adding a lot of features that, you know, most people are probably going to want. So I think the clean look of this installer is actually a really good thing. And I mean, it's something that, to me, if you want to be taken seriously by non-Linux users, it's something you kind of have to work on. It doesn't have to be Garuda, again. It doesn't have to be that, that crazy looking, but it does need to look sharp. And I think this installer looks sharp. So we'll go ahead and restart. Should be coming back up here. I'll probably have to redo the scaling, but after that, we should be able to jump into things. This is a little strange. I don't know why this is light mode and everything else is dark mode, it seems. Well, let's do the most important thing that one should do after installing Ubuntu. Pack, install Ubuntu. Here we go. This is what we need. So I'm gonna go on and copy this. These updates are important, but they're not as important as what I'm doing right now. Let's do this. password in here. Sure, we're good with that. While we're waiting, we'll go on and we don't need this part because this is for older Ubuntu versions. So now we got to install this. We don't have to, I guess, but, and then we're going to add the FlatHub repository. And then we need to reboot, which we're going to do after we do the updates. But just like that, I have circumvented Ubuntu's denial of Flatpak or something like that. And yeah, I don't know why they made that decision. It just seems petty because literally it's, 3 steps and reboot. All right, we're up to date. So let's go ahead and reboot just to have Flatpak set up, and then we will see what else we can see. Restart. And let's take a look around. So let's take a look at the apps that are installed. Let me see if I can get myself out of the way. Oh, I'm not covering anything. This is all of them. We'll take a look at this in 2204, but I believe this is very similar to what was in 2204. I like that you can go up here and turn on dark mode. You can turn on nightlight. So nightlight is just something that makes the screen temperature a bit more red in the evenings. It's still light outside here, so it's not going to really turn on right now. But if it was a bit later in the day, this would be a more red tint if I turn that on. Let's see, we can turn Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on and off. I'm going to turn those off since I'm not using them. So one thing I really like here is the screenshot tool. I can grab a picture here of the lobster if I can get it to expand a little bit. There we go. Screenshot captured, so it's been posted to my clipboard. You can paste the image from your clipboard. And so now if I go to Files, if I go to Pictures, Screenshots, there it is. But the other interesting thing is if I go here to Documents, and I Control V to paste, it'll actually post it there. I don't know if that's something you can actually do in KDE Plasma. I'm gonna have to try that out. But it is kind of cool that I can actually paste it as a file. And of course, we now see the actual thumbnails. So that's nice that we can actually see those. But one thing that I really like about Gnome is how integrated everything is. And Ubuntu really does a good job with that. They do a good job with the look and feel of Gnome, but they also end up adding things that most people are going to want. For example, there is a notification badge over here for it, and I'm hoping that we'll actually get to see that pop up at some point here. But for example, I don't think this is typically part of Gnome. I don't normally use Gnome, so I could be wrong, but I think this is more Ubuntu specific stuff that they've added to, help people out. They've added the notifications area. We can, of course, actually see them on the lock screen. That's interesting. And you can turn them on and off for each particular program that can send notifications. And so accessibility is one area where GNOME 44 really made some changes. And so they've actually updated this to be in a couple of different areas. So, you have your seeing area and you have large text cursor size. I'm going to go in and bump up the cursor size because it is tiny on this screen. That looks a bit better. You can do high contrast, reduce animation. You can also turn on the screen reader down below. I don't have a audio setup for this particular machine right now, so I can't really try that out. I do want to try that out at some point here though, because it is one area where I want to look at Linux a bit more in that. And then we keep going. We have default apps, date and time, all about. So, most of this is standard GNOME stuff, but there are some things that they have done to make sure that people have a bit more options than a typical vanilla GNOME setup. So like I mentioned, let's check the Linux kernel version. We should be seeing 6.2, and we do. Let's also check on Pipewire. So PS, I believe it was -E, and then Pipewire. If I could type, that would help. There we go. So we have Pipewire and Pipewire Pulse. So yes, we are running both of those. And so looks like the entire audio system is being handled by Pipewire. Bring up the store. Let's see what this thing looks like. Yeah, Snap Crafters. Here's the source up here. You do have the Snap Store Snap and Snap Store Snap. So yeah, I do find it interesting that Ubuntu is still on 27.2 or 27.1, and I don't understand why 27.1 is the default, because I think they just released like OBS Studio 29.1. So I'm not sure why this is so old for a new release. That is weird to me. Krita does look up to date here though, because I believe 5.15 came out in January. Oh, And here is our little notification badge over here. And so now we have updates here, and we could update Firefox. I'm not going to bother right now because I don't plan to use Ubuntu on this machine very long. And I just noticed right below my camera over in the corner here, the home folder is there. I don't know why it's all the way down in the corner, but if you don't end up liking that, I don't use desktop files anymore. So I could go to settings, and I believe you go to Ubuntu desktop and show personal folder, and you just turn it off and then it's gone. But it is nice for those that are used to that. One other thing that I think is interesting, let's open a Firefox here and I'll click the button again. So I believe, yeah, I think Gnome normally goes up and down for its workspaces, but it seems like Ubuntu goes left and right. And maybe that's just me not being a Gnome person and not understanding that. But the updated Gnome and the updated Linux kernel are two of the biggest things, obviously. And of course, the new apps are always good to have. And I think that does it for our look at Ubuntu 2304. Again, Ubuntu's not really my thing, but I do like to try to take a look every once in a while and see what they've been up to. The Active Directory connection in the creation section is really interesting to see. It makes a lot of sense for a company that wants to be adopted by the corporate world. One of the other big positives to Ubuntu 2304 is that it looks very clean. I like the theming, I like the new installer look, and overall, I generally end up thinking that it's probably the best version of Gnome out of the box you're gonna see because of some of the touches that they add. Other distros will just, have a standard Gnome on their distro, and that's fine. I like that they make it try to look clean and that they give some good backgrounds options as well. Some people don't really take this seriously, but to me, the clean aesthetic look is something that's important when it comes to attracting new users and also being attractive to business partners. And that is something that Canonical is very interested in, obviously. That being said, they did have the unfortunate decision about Flatpaks, and it just feels petty. You saw how quickly I got Flatpaks up and running, and it's just they gave a reason. It just seems like a poor thought out move, especially when it came to the community flavors. But that's it from me. What are your thoughts on Ubuntu 2304? Are you typically using Ubuntu, or what is your distro of choice nowadays? Thanks for watching, have a great day, and I will see you next time.